So two of the most frequent questions that I get asked by people who are contemplating applying for the JET program or applying to other programs to teach and work in Japan are, number one, how much teaching experience do I actually need? And the second one is, how much Japanese language ability should I have? So we all know that there are benefits to having Japanese language skill and teaching experience. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about those benefits, but also some things that maybe you didn't think about. And it doesn't mean that it's necessarily negative or bad, but just some things that people that do have teaching experience and Japanese language experience may want to consider. So thank you so much for stopping by my channel. For those of you that are new here, my name is Kim and I'm an elementary school teacher here in Yokohama, Japan. I was a teacher in Los Angeles for 8 years before coming on the JET program. And let me say this, when I applied for the JET program, I just assumed that everybody was going to be teachers. But I didn't realize that people that were on the JET program came from all different backgrounds and degrees. So to answer the question, do you need teaching experience to be on the JET program? The answer is no. Now, it may be different on some programs, and if you plan or if you are interested in teaching at the international schools or even at some immersion schools in Japan, having a teacher's credential or license from your own country is a requirement. So check those particular schools' websites and see whether or not you do need a license from your home country. On the JET program and other language programs, you usually don't need any teaching experience. This is because most of the times you are working as a team teacher, so you will be paired up with a Japanese licensed teacher of English. Now, that being said, sometimes you will be required to teach classes either by yourself or maybe plan the lessons, and you might not have any background in those areas. So this is where I think a little bit of teaching experience helps. Is it necessary? No. But does it help you? Yes. So let's talk a little bit about some of the obvious benefits that you do have when you have teaching experience before you come on these programs. I narrowed it down to 3 benefits and then 3 things to think about. So obviously, number 1 is if you have teaching experience and if you've taught in the classroom before, you probably know how to make a lesson plan, and you probably know different strategies to use to teach whatever objectives you have. If you have teaching experience, you kind of know how to gear your lessons to appeal and to help and to teach all different types of children in your classroom. And you see that if something is going wrong in the classroom, you can immediately pick up on certain things because that's what we were kind of trained to do. Number 2 is that you do have classroom management experience. It doesn't say that your classroom management from your home country is going to work in a Japanese classroom or that it may even be accepted in a Japanese classroom. There are some teachers that require very quiet classrooms. Everything has to be in order and organized. And I've been in other classrooms where it's pure chaos because the philosophy there is to let children learn by how they're comfortable learning. So you may have kids talking, without raising their hand, or you may have children shouting out or being so excited and you can't get them to sit down and actually listen to your lesson. So it all depends on your school. But I think as an experienced teacher, you do have different discipline strategies that you can use and that you can talk to your fellow teachers about. Sometimes the Japanese teacher will leave the discipline up to you, and other times you may need the Japanese teacher to help you with discipline or classroom management. This is where team teaching, you really do have to share and communicate well with your team teacher so that you can have everything in your classroom under control to get your lesson taught. Other things that good classroom management helps you with is your record keeping, your assessment keeping, all that kind of paperwork that you may be expected to document. If you've never done any record keeping as far as what students are capable of doing or what skills that they still have to master. It's a lot of organization to learn, but if you are motivated, then it really isn't as difficult as it may seem. And there are lots of people, not only around you, but also online that can help you get things in order or give you examples of good record keeping or classroom management strategies and techniques. The third thing that is a plus, and it definitely was for me, is that you will be very, very welcome and accepted into the teaching community if you do have teaching experience under your belt. As a teacher, when you're sharing some of the things about your school back home or some of the strategies that you do in your own country, it does kind of help you fit in with the other teachers. They know that you have teaching experience, and it's kind of like, it's like a little badge, you know. It's like saying, hey, yes, I'm a teacher. You know, it shows that you have a little experience and that you've studied education, which is what your colleagues have all studied. And so next I'd like to talk about 3 things that maybe you thought having teaching experience would be a huge plus, but maybe you come here and you get a little disappointed, or maybe it's just a little frustrating. So let's talk about those 3 things. Number 1 is being or feeling underutilized. Okay? So you may have a lot of years in your home country of teaching experience. You may even have some teaching experience here in Japan. And yet when you go to your assignment or your position on the JET program or in another program, all that expertise is kind of put on hold, and you're told to do things that you think, my goodness, this is not what I got my degree for, to just record things and go up to the front and read passages that the students have to repeat. And it's frustrating because in your head, you may have all these ideas of how you want to teach a certain skill or games or activities that could help reinforce these skills, but you're told that it can't be done, or there's no time, or it just wouldn't work at the type of school that you're at. Whatever reason they give you, it can be really frustrating. When I taught in Los Angeles, we're pretty much used to full days, right? From the moment you start school at 8:15 or 8 o'clock, whatever time it is, you go straight through, sometimes without a break, teaching every single class period, and maybe your only break is that 20-minute recess or your lunch period. And every other time, you're either teaching or supervising something. And sometimes on JET, it's a little different. You may have 1 or 2 classes a day, and then the rest of the time you're sitting at your desk told to prepare lessons or maybe correct some things or tape record some things, and you just feel like, why? I could be doing so much more. Now, granted, there are days where you think, oh my gosh, I wish I had that time at my desk again. I think that sometimes when I remember all that time when I had so many extra periods to create materials or, you know, do some creative lesson planning and think of these cool games and things to use. And when you're being used, sometimes you don't have that extra time to do all this. So it kind of works both ways, but I have heard many stories of teachers that come here and they're just frustrated because they feel like they're not being able to do everything that they can. And, you know, it could be frustrating because you just feel like you could offer more. That being said, I'm going to talk about number 2. And I see this happen with a lot of people. And it's just sort of interesting because there are people that come not only on the JET program, but also to teach at language schools or international kindergartens or these or schools called eikaiwa, which are conversation schools. And, their working day, they're teaching lessons maybe on a one-to-one basis or a small group. And they now consider themselves teachers. Whereas here you are, maybe you have your license from your home country and you have taught in the school system. Maybe you were even a principal, a vice principal, or the leader of your ESL program, whatever the case is. And you are perhaps in a situation where people are calling themselves teachers, and yet in your head you're thinking, they're not really teachers. And it's kind of like a little battle that goes on. And everybody has their own opinions, everybody has their views, but sometimes, right, you can see differences, or you can see the way that things are handled, and maybe the licensed teachers over here are looking at the non-licensed teachers here and thinking, what kind of lesson plan is that? What is the goal that you're teaching? Or you're doing games and giving out little stickers and rewards and showing videos while you go, work at your desk, and you're calling yourselves a teacher. And the people on this side are saying, look, I've been working with students. I have classes on weekends and this and that. And I'm doing the same thing as you are, but I just don't have the credential from my home country. Whatever the case. It's just, as a licensed teacher and as someone, if you have, your background in education, if you have a master's of education, you feel really proudly and strongly about that. And sometimes when you're lumped together with someone that maybe has worked at a conversation school, or that has maybe worked with an after-school program with children teaching English, and they call themselves a teacher and say that that they are an experienced teacher, you might be looking at it in a different light. I have seen people get a little frustrated by the self-proclaimed teachers and the ones that have the license to prove it. I don't know how you feel, so you'll have to make that decision when you come here. And number 3, and this was probably the hardest part for me to get used to, being a licensed teacher, someone with teaching experience, when I came on the JET program. It was having your own classroom. We teachers, we look forward, I think, to decorating our classroom, getting the room environment just right, putting up the signs, doing your labels, even color coordinating, whatever it is. You look forward to that because it's your space. And when you come on the JET program, you don't always have your own classroom. You may have a classroom that's used as the English room, or at my particular school we call it the global communication classrooms, or it may be just a designated classroom that's known as the English room that you will be allowed to decorate or put a few personal touches. But it's not the same as having your own class. Now, I've been lucky and fortunate to teach at 2 different immersion schools here in Japan, and that was very similar to what my teaching life was like back in Los Angeles. You have your own classroom, you can decorate it how you want, and that's a special feeling. I think that's something that every teacher really, really cherishes and is proud of. But when you're teaching in a English teacher specialist position, or you're at a school on JET and you're team teaching, it's not your own classroom. Therefore, sometimes you'll have to do or accept or create the rules together with your partner teacher or with your team teacher. And maybe those fun, exciting areas that you want to put into your classroom, you're not going to be able to do, mainly because you're not there every day. Sometimes on JET, you're not always at the same school every day. You might just be there 2 or 3 times a week. You might only go to that school once, a month. It just depends on your assignment. So you really can't do too much to change the classroom. But yeah, that's probably what I miss the most. Now I share a classroom. It's the global communication classroom. I share it with 4 other teachers. Actually, no, I share it with 3 other teachers. And it is, still my space, but it's still not the same. I've gotten over it though. So the other question is, do you need Japanese language skills to be accepted for the JET program or other teaching programs in Japan? And that answer is no. You can come with 0 experience. That being said, you do have to kind of show that you're going to make the effort to learn Japanese, or that you are willing to learn Japanese, because not everything is going to be translated for you, and you're not going to always have like a personal translator, or you can't always keep looking at Google Translate or whatever method you use. So hopefully you will come with the attitude that you will start learning the language. But as far as being fluent in Japanese or having an intermediate level of Japanese, it is not a requirement. I personally came with a little tiny bit of Japanese. I was comfortable hearing it because relatives of mine spoke it. And I did go to Japanese school every Saturday when I was a child. But most of the Japanese that I learned there was not the Japanese that I was going to be using when I came to Japan. It was just things like greetings and, different words, but I had no idea, and I still don't, how to put everything together correctly. So you will pick up the language, and you will most likely, start to become more comfortable listening and speaking it once you are here. But as far as for your application or for applying, no, you don't need it. I will tell you something. If you do on your application say that you speak Japanese, or if you make your level higher than it actually is, that could work against you, because you may get asked a question in Japanese, and if you can't answer it, or if you don't have any idea what they're saying, they're going to question whether or not you were really being honest on your application. But definitely, if you do speak Japanese, go ahead and check that box that you do speak Japanese. Now, the good parts are obvious. If you come with Japanese language skills, you are probably going to have no problems building good relationships with your fellow teachers, your colleagues, and your community. You will have probably a much easier time adjusting to your living situation, getting accustomed to your neighborhood, going shopping, all those things. So you'll have a little bit of a background, or you'll be comfortable using the language, even if you use it wrong or incorrectly. Just the fact that you're trying, I think you'll feel comfortable or at ease. And your colleagues, you'll be able to go out and learn more about them and socialize with the ones that don't speak or don't have confidence in their English abilities. So that's a definite plus, because you'll find at your school, most of the times you'll be working with your Japanese teachers of English, but you'll find that there's always other people on staff that speak English, and there's also other teachers on staff that don't speak English, but they really want to get to know you, and they're fun people to get to know. So don't let that language barrier stop you. If you have Japanese coming in, it's just going to be easier for you to assimilate into your school or your company's situation. So that's a big plus factor. The second plus is that you'll know what your students are saying about you or during your classes. And that may seem really funny, but a lot of times, right, you'll know if they're saying something that's maybe not so nice, or maybe if they're criticizing something, and you don't have to let them know that you understand Japanese. There's some teachers that come and they have to prove and show that they know Japanese. So in their classes or with their children or their students, they'll always get some Japanese in there, or they'll say a joke in Japanese, or they'll say a reaction in Japanese. And sometimes the students will be like, oh, cool, they speak in Japanese, or oh, you know Japanese. And it gets them really excited. I've always been the other way, so I probably know more Japanese than I let on to. And of course, I don't speak it as well as my colleagues or my other, foreign friends do, but I do know it enough that I can recognize certain things. So I always keep my ears open, and during class, if I hear a tsumaranai, which is like boring, or if I hear the, something like, oh my gosh, look at her fashion, it's so different, or oh, I like the way she has her hair today, or whatever the question is, you kind of get it, and you kind of get those clues. So I know that if a student is getting bored, or if they're not understanding, if I hear a bunch of students saying wakarimasen or whatever, I know that they don't understand what I'm trying to teach them, and I can combat it by quickly employing another teaching strategy. I also know, if they're saying something and, maybe it's something totally unrelated to what the lesson is, then I can kind of, pick up on that. You can learn a lot just by listening. And maybe that's my Japanese language tip for all of you. Always keep your ears open in the classroom and on the trains, in the restaurants. You're going to be the biggest eavesdropper, because listening, you kind of, that's how you pick up some things. Sorry, I just put up the shutter on the back seat of my car because this car just parked and blocked my beautiful bamboo. I'm in a parking lot. The third plus about having Japanese language when you come here to Japan is that you're automatically then a role model for learning a second language. So you're teaching your students English, and if you have skills of another language, whether it be Japanese or Spanish, Russian, French, Chinese, whatever other language you can speak, you're a great role model for them. You're showing your students that, that my teacher knows another language. My teacher from the US, or my teacher from this country, also has made the efforts to learn Japanese. If they can do it, I can do it too. So it's great that you're an instant role model, and use that to your advantage. I don't think there's any negative points about having Japanese language skills when you come to Japan. I think it's all positive, but maybe some things that you might not expect to happen are these three things. Number one, you might be expected to do more. And, maybe it's flattering, but you might be asked to translate something, or you might be asked to give a speech somewhere, or you might be asked to do some translation, for other teachers. And all of a sudden your workload might increase because you have Japanese language ability. You might be asked to be in charge of this club, or be in charge of certain things because they need somebody that has Japanese language skills. That could be a plus, but if you're not prepared to do maybe some extra work, then maybe it could be considered a negative. But just be aware that the more they realize that you have Japanese skills, the more you might be asked to do things that maybe a teacher that doesn't have as strong Japanese skills as you might not be asked to do. The second thing that might be a little bit frustrating, but it might be a plus for your Japanese teachers of English, is your Japanese teachers of English might decide to speak only in Japanese to you and communicate with you in Japanese. And part of the reason you're coming on the JET program is to help encourage and promote and motivate your Japanese teachers of English to use English, to communicate in English, and to build up their skills in English. And if you come and the whole time you're doing your lesson planning and you're talking all in Japanese, maybe it's improving your Japanese ability, but maybe it is not improving your Japanese teacher of English's English ability. So, it's something that I think it's like a comfort zone. I think the minute even just people in the community or maybe new Japanese friends that you might be making, the minute they realize you can speak Japanese, then they may just automatically turn and speak Japanese to you. And maybe, that's a good thing for your own personal Japanese, but maybe you really would like to help build their communication levels in English. So, I guess my advice here would be to still use both. And if you think that it's somebody that should be building up their English skills, like the Japanese teachers of English or your students, encourage them to be able to speak with you in English. But you can reassure them that you do, if they really don't know, you can help them because you do understand some Japanese. Whoops, sorry. I had to switch my battery, so I hope I got the camera in almost the same position. So the third thing is that if you are the one that speaks Japanese, you're probably going to be the one, sorry if that's crooked, you're probably going to be the one that people will come to ask for help or translation. And it can be a good thing, but you also, might get a lot busier. You might be the one that has to go to the hospital with people to translate. Sometimes you're the one to deal with police situations. And for me, that was a good thing because I enjoy helping people and I enjoy, being able to, especially new Jets or people that are new to the community, new to Japan. It's scary when you don't have somebody to go with you to the doctor, or maybe you have a situation that requires talking to a police officer or reporting something, or you've lost something, and it just helps to have somebody that speaks a little bit more of the language than you do. So oftentimes if you do have Japanese ability, you're going to be that friend that will take people and help them. On the flip side, if you are going out with a group of people and no one speaks Japanese so well, and that could be, it could be a party, it could be going out to dinner with a group of people, it could be going out to karaoke, singing, and something happens, and the workers will go to the person that can speak Japanese and expect you to be the one in charge. So obviously if there's an issue with price or something's being broken or it gets too noisy, they will ask for the person that speaks Japanese the best. And if that's you, you're going to be the spokesperson and the one that has to translate. And sometimes you want to say, don't hate the messenger, don't yell at me. But you're going to be the one getting yelled at, or you're going to have to translate between two people in an argument. And that's not fun. But that's what comes with the territory sometimes. And as I said, having language skills in Japanese before you come to Japan, and coming here to live in Japan or working here, it does help, and it does make you feel kind of important and kind of good that you can moderate and do these things. But sometimes it's tasks that maybe you didn't expect to have. So having a teaching background and teaching experience, or having a Japanese language experience prior to coming on a program such as the JET program or coming to live and work in Japan, it all helps. It is definitely something that will help you adjust here and get used to your life here, and even maybe get your foot in the door into working here. But do you necessarily need teaching experience in Japanese language skills to come and work in Japan? No, at least not for the JET program or many teaching programs. Other things you will. So, don't get me wrong, other things you will. But for the most part, this is an opportunity that kind of opens its doors and allows people of all different experiences and levels to come in here and become stronger in their experiences. It will give you some teaching experience. It will give you the opportunity to improve your Japanese. It will open up a lot more doors to you than close them. And you'll learn a lot about yourself and things that may be in the future, things that will help you navigate your own career. In fact, because I'm a former JET program participant and I had the best 3 years when I came on JET, I would say don't let that intimidate you. Go ahead and apply. Even though I came with teaching experience, I didn't have a whole lot of Japanese experience, and I did okay. There's a lot of people to help you, and nowadays, my goodness, there's so many apps and resources that can really assist you. You don't have to be like me and flounder and figure out things the way I had to do. And there's so many people that can help you. So as long as you come with an open mind and you're ready to experience whatever position or place you work at, then I say, don't let it intimidate you. So I hope you found this video helpful or maybe even a little inspirational. And if you did, I'd appreciate it if you could please give me a thumbs up. Please feel free to leave comments below. You can ask me any questions or things that you are curious about Japan or teaching in Japan. And if you are someone that does work and live here and have taught in Japan or currently teach in Japan, share your experience with everybody that comes and reads the comments, because we can all help each other that way. I've been really blessed with a very supportive community here, both on YouTube and in Japan. So please consider subscribing and join our community, because love to have you come along on our adventures. And definitely, I think teachers, we all stick together and we all learn from each other, and we could really share different experiences and opinions and even struggles that we have as teachers in Japan. Please consider subscribing. You can hit the notification bell so that whenever I post a video, you'll be notified ASAP. I'm really trying hard to be a little bit more consistent here on YouTube. I think it's a wonderful platform and a wonderful way for us to connect with each other. So thank you so much for subscribing and being so kind and supportive with your comments and messages. Wherever you are, have a great day, and we will see you all in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.